This show is made possible by the generous support of listeners just like you. Our show is about helping souls grow, prosper, and evolve, and every gift ensures that we can continue to do this. So we thank our generous supporters and also ask if you would like to be a part of supporting this important effort to bring this message of truth to the world. Please consider heading to experienceofthesoul.com/support to be a part of supporting us by being a regular patron or making a one-time gift. Blessings on the journey, dear friend.
Zen Living Realty, Supportek Staffing, and Center for the Healing Arts present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 141, Soul Evolution and Reincarnation. And now your host, Reverend Cynthiaaliceanderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthiaaliceanderson. I'm the host. I'm here in 818 Studios with my producer.
Hello, everybody. This is Dave Croft. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey. I hope that you guys have all had collectively great weekends and are looking forward to the month of March. Things are starting to warm up even more. Spring is just around the corner, and I absolutely adore springtime in Florida. Spring and fall, those I got to tell you, they've become my new favorite seasons, especially fall.
Yeah, it's hard to beat in Florida, that's for sure. I know I'm thinking of my good friends in New York and my friends in Canada that have just been like covered in snow. So yeah, we're wishing you warmth and new buds coming forward, and probably because in so many places that have those big winters, it makes an even more beautiful spring because things have been resting and under all that snow, which means a lot of moisture and all that. So for our earth, it's really good. Yes, but happy March. And we're always happy to have you with us in the show and on the spiritual journey. And we're so proud of the new shows that are coming forward. Hopefully, if you're a listener to the channel, you don't just listen to my one show, but they're shows every single day now.
Yeah, we have shows 7 days a week now.
Yes. I'm really proud to have Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, as our newest addition, somebody that's meant so much to me over the years. She's, wow, her knowledge base after so many years of working with people, survivors of trauma of all kinds, from therapeutic work to working around the world with, during the AIDS crisis to, 45 years as a therapist. Wow, what a gift to the world she is, and what a gift to our channel. So friends, this is the Experience of the Soul podcast channel, and it is an answer to a dream of mine and a goal. And today, our show, The Authentic Spiritual Journey, which airs every single Monday, is we think of it as our flagship show. It was our very first one, and it's been the driver of all things on this channel. So all the shows, though, are about the growth, the prospering, the evolving of your soul. And sometimes we do that through spiritual teachings. We do it through the work, our psychological work. And these are all interrelated. And you're going to see how even more today. So Dave, give us our title for today.
Yes, the title for today is Soul Evolution and Reincarnation. But before we go into the title, I wanted to just point out, you said that this show and the channel was a dream of yours. And I remember sitting down to lunch and talking about this. And I'm like, do you want just one podcast, or do you want to bring more messages from different people? And you really dreamed big during that. And because of that, now we have 7 days a week where we have at least 30 minutes of content, sometimes even more than that, with daily affirmations and the meditations and everything. And so you are living proof that dreaming big and going big and living big, the manifestation of that, you are proof of that by having a channel.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It is a channel, not just a show. And I think sometimes I'm so busy providing content, I forget to enjoy all the great work we've been doing. And I always want to acknowledge, all the various hosts now that we have, because they're all amazing women, really on their own journey and all equally making a difference, in different ways. Monique and her work through her teaching, working with the voice, and then Mindy with her work in, real grief, real healing. So we are really providing so much support for our listeners, and it makes me feel very happy and very fortunate, and to know, in fact, as you say, the spiritual principles I teach do, in fact, work. These are not just ideas, these are laws. These are spiritual laws. And when we are in alignment with those laws, good things happen. So, this is all of these shows are about the growth and development of your soul. So today's show is especially along those lines. So let's hear the title one more time, because we didn't really take it in last
Yeah,
time.
sorry.
Okay.
I veered us off into a new
That's
direction.
all right. That's all right.
It is soul evolution and reincarnation.
Yes. So, if you are of the Christian faith and you hear the word reincarnation, it might scare you a little bit, because for some of us, this is a new term. So, the way I approach my spiritual journey is, rather than trying to fit something into my dogma, what I seek to do is learn as much about God and as much about the soul as I can. And that has taken me on a journey I did not expect. I grew up in a home where we went to church often. The Andersons basically opened Red Oak United Methodist Church and closed it every week. My mom was the president of the board. My brother and sister were the pianist and organist, and I was the choir director. So we, as a family, and those of us who weren't doing that were playing violin or singing in the choir or helping, cook in the church basement for the next thing. So our family was very much a part of, traditional church life. And I remember when I was really young, I was maybe about, I don't know, 9 or 10. And my mom and I were in the car, and I said to her, Mom, we always hear about God the Father, and we know and we hear Jesus was God's son. Is there a mother? And Mom said, well, honey, I'll tell you this. If there's a father and a son, there's got to be a mother in there somewhere. And I said, well, how come we never hear about her? Just a very childlike question. How come we never hear about her? And she said, well, that's what we call the Holy Spirit. I said, oh, that makes sense to me. So I understood at a very young age that there was maybe more to the story than I was hearing. And so we were at Red Oak United Methodist, and I was schooled at a Baptist school. At that same time, I was learning a little bit of the understanding that my ancestors, the Cherokee, had about nature and the holiness and sacredness of all things living. So none of the things I was learning were really in opposition to one another, but they were a different perspective on the same thing. And as my interest grew in knowing more about the soul, I learned there was much more to the story. So the Methodist Church and the Baptist Church served as a wonderful basis for my spiritual development, and I will always be grateful for that. I know scriptures, I know songs. To this day, when my family gets together, we know all the words of all the hymns, and we still stand around the piano and play our instruments and sing and play those songs. And yet, I also know there is much, much more to be learned. There's a much more awareness that can be had than I learned sitting in the pews at Red Oak United Methodist. But I'm always grateful for that. And even as I speak about the soul, I can speak to anyone of any faith and have an understanding and a connection because of my soul understanding. So I wanted to just start out by saying, if you're Baptist, if you're Methodist, if you're Muslim, I'm not here to take that away. What I'm here to do is maybe give you a little more information to better understand the faith you're in. because we're all souls on a journey. We all have this sacred presence. Many of us call it God. Some of us call it the Christ nature. Some of us call it the Buddha nature. The truth is, God is so big, it doesn't matter what you call it. We all have this inner special sacredness. And, we know from the Christian scriptures, when we look at the story of creation, we hear that, God made everything, and when it was done, he saw it was good. And when he got to humanity, he said it was very good. So this is good news for us. We have this sacredness within us that is very good, but it needs to be nurtured. It needs to be known. It needs to be understood, because as I learned and grew in my journey, I learned that I'm not just here one time. I'm not just here to live, to make money, pay taxes, and die. And that was mostly the awareness I grew up with, that this was life. And yes, you live the best life you can. You do good, you be good, and you help others, you serve others. Well, I have a deeper understanding now of my journey, and this is what we want to talk about today.
Yeah, that was one of the big takeaways that I got from starting to go to a Unity church, which is you are originally blessed, not originally cursed. That was huge, because I had all growing up, we are sinners saved by grace, and you put that on a kid, and that can make you feel kind of wormy. And so
Exactly. Yes. And the idea that we're originally blessed, not originally cursed, I want you to know that's not a new idea. That's an ancient idea. In Jesus's time, well, first of all, we forget Jesus was a Jew, and the idea of original sin was not known during Jesus's time. It was not known in Judaism. That came later. We can thank, I'm saying that with tongue in cheek, we can thank St. Augustine for that, I guess, for that teaching. That, we do things we don't mean to do because we're ultimately, quote unquote, sinful. Of course, he was borrowing from the Apostle Paul there. So as we seek to know our soul, yes, first, Dave, we have to know, well, am I born good or born evil? Well, I'm going to say we are born good. Now, having said that, today is about soul evolution and reincarnation. So it's a very deep answer, because we are a soul. And so let me talk about that, because we're hearing that word soul now more today than ever. There are cars named Soul, there are movies named Soul. And I want you all to know that I predicted about it's about 6 or 7 years ago, I started collecting clippings. And I said, within a decade, soul will be a household word. And a friend of mine said, you're crazy. I said, nope, it's going to happen. And I started seeing it reflected in advertising, and now I'm seeing it in products. So what do I mean when I use the word soul? Well, ultimately, your soul is an individualized expression of God, right? So your soul is your journey, and you have been here more than one time. And first of all, you may have heard it said the soul is a fragment of God. That would be accurate to say, because basically you are an individual portion of the mind of God. You have a individual journey that you're here to experience, to do, and to live. And in fact, it is through your soul that you're linked with the here and now moment and with God. So your soul is both present and eternal at the same time. So when we're born into this world, we're born as a little baby. We bring all of our soul memory with us. So you say, are you born originally sinful? We're born good, but do we bring with us memory of a past life? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And if this subject of reincarnation is new for you, I want you to think about the scriptures where people said to Jesus, or said about Jesus, is he Elijah? Who is this man?
Right.
Is he, so of course they didn't know he was Elijah standing there. What were they thinking? Is this Elijah reincarnated? Right? Because that would have been a teaching during Jesus's time. This is Eastern teaching. So this would have been a known teaching during the time. And I don't know why to some Christians this idea is um, somehow scary, or it seems to minimize Jesus or God. And in fact, I think it is a wonderful truth, because to be reincarnated simply means really that we're rebirthed over and over. And as we do, we are evolving in our understanding of our own divine nature. So the reason we evolve is to become more and more like God. So it doesn't take your heaven, it doesn't take your Jesus. You get to keep all that. You get to keep all that. So if you can just know that there's nothing scary about these teachings, these are enlightening teachings. They help you understand, where you already are. So let me back up and say, people use the word soul in a lot of different ways. Basically, your soul means your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, your ideas from this life and past lives. Those are all present in you right now, today. And our soul is what helps us communicate with God. It's what helps guide us in our wise decisions. It helps protect us from danger. It works with us biologically as well. So the soul ultimately is the connection with your true self. So we love to say that you are spirit, soul, and body, right? That your body houses the soul, but we know this body is only good for so long and then it goes. Well, what happens when we die? Well, the soul doesn't stay here, the soul goes on. Anybody who has experienced death firsthand with a loved one can describe this feeling.
Yeah,
Usually,
yeah,
go
absolutely.
ahead.
When Larry recently passed, like back in October, and we were
Right.
there at the end, and
Mhm.
completely there was a moment he was there, and a moment he wasn't, and it was a palpable feeling in the room. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes, and sometimes there's experiences where the room feels illuminated. Sometimes there's just a feeling of love or a feeling of peace. But when you look at the body, the soul is no longer there. It seems empty, it's still. And so we know that the body simply is housing the soul. So when we say spirit, soul, body, well, what we mean is there is this part of us that never ever changes. That's the God aspect. That's the holiness of you. That's the goodness we're speaking of when we say you're born originally blessed, not originally cursed. Now, when we're speaking of your soul, we're saying these are everything that's happened thus far is being born into this life wave for new lessons, for new learning, and potentially to evolve, right? So this is why we talk about evolution so much, is what we try to do is evolve as much this lifetime as we can. Why? To know God. What's going to happen when we know God? Well, we're going to return again as servants to the higher energy to help people grow and evolve. See, the journey's never over. And so, what I see a lot in our culture, people doing, they say, well, I'm a Christian, I'm saved, that's all I need to worry about. And then they go and raise all kind of hell. Well, I'm saved, God's got it, it's fine. Well, I mean, maybe, but we're not supposed to just quote unquote get saved and then do whatever we want. This is not an insurance policy. The idea is that when we become aware of our Christian nature, when we take on this energy of the Christ, or we seek to live a better life through our spiritual practice, well, it becomes a daily, even a momently practice. So, um, even though your soul is a part of God, you're not always aware of that fact. And that's where the evolution comes in. So we're evolving. And the truth is, each of us is a God being. And it is our soul that guides us. It is our soul that moves us forward. And we are all souls evolving. Hear the word all, souls evolving. You might say, well, some are taking their sweet time. And I would say that's true. People are at different levels. on the journey. Like there are young souls, there are old souls. Like many of us have heard that phrase, right? Like, oh, he's an old soul or she's an old soul. What does that mean? That means somebody who's been here before, that's wise beyond their earth years. And why would that be? Because they have had more lifetimes of learning, more lifetimes to have their spiritual consciousness develop, to have a greater awareness, to know themselves and God.
Right? I feel like your son is an old soul. Do you
Oh,
get that?
yes.
Do you get that sense?
Oh, he is. When he was a baby, people always called him Little Buddha. I mean, it was just, he was so at peace, and so centered. And he had the kind of this little fat belly, and he would just sit there, and his eyes were really big, and they were like, oh my gosh, little Buddha. And yes, yes. And so many of our kids being born right now are, I was just talking to a friend today that he works with kids age 6 to 20 on a really regular basis. And he said the kids are really being born with a new consciousness. I said they are. They're more aware. They're more awake. They are more, they see past form, and they're about what really matters. And I said, the issue is, though, if they're not guided, if they're not directed, and they feel misunderstood, if they're not supported in this awareness, we're going to have more issues and more violence because of this extreme being misunderstood. So yes, there are a lot of kids being born into this new energy right now. So we're coming up, I know, on a break. I just want you to think right now about your soul has been evolving probably for eons. And when we know others haven't, it helps us have a little more compassion and a little more grace for others on the journey. So we'll talk a little bit more right after these few messages.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, Zen Living Realty. Zen Living Realty's mission is to mindfully serve, connect, and positively impact their customers, partners, and community through their Zen approach to real estate. Their vision is to be the most trusted real estate brokerage in the Central Florida area. You can reach Zen Living Realty at zenlivingrealty.com or call 407-800-2717. We'd also like to give a special word of thanks to Supportek Staffing. Supportek Staffing is an innovative staffing agency built on the principle of caring about employers and employees as they navigate these new workforce and workplace challenges. If you're an employer, they want to be your human resource partner and help with the changes needed during the pandemic. If you're a candidate, they want to become your lifelong career agent to help you grow into your fullest potential. Supportek prioritizes support over volume, integrity over profits, and will treat your business and your career as if it was their own. You can learn more at supportekstaffing.com. That's SUPPORTEK staffing.com. And finally, we want to give a special word of thanks to Center for the Healing Arts. Center for the Healing Arts is one of the first dedicated group practices devoted to challenging, supportive, and nurturing therapy. Their dedicated therapists have a wide range of expertise, including relationship and couples therapy, individual therapy, addictions, neurofeedback, play therapy for children, adolescents, and families, and therapy for blended family issues. They also regularly offer day-long intensive workshops for relationships, addiction recovery, adult children of alcoholics, and healing trauma in the LGBTQ+ community. For more information, head over to centerforthehealingarts.com or call 407-657-8555, extension 1. We now return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia.Anderson.
Welcome back again. We're so glad you're with us today. And I hope this is making you think about your soul, everything we're talking about. And if this information is new to you, go back and play the first half again. And I want to say a couple things that, as you think about it, your soul really is a link between God and the physical world. That might be an easiest way to think about it, because like I say, your soul is certainly present to the here and now reality, but your soul is connected, in fact, to eternity. And so you're here again to grow, to evolve, and your soul is finding its place in the scheme of things. So, but basically, you're here to learn more of your soul, and as you learn more of your soul, you know more of God. So, you can see how your particular faith wouldn't necessarily limit your soul knowledge unless um, there was some teaching against growing and evolving. And of course, the purpose really of all spirituality is for an awareness of the divine and bringing that into everyday life so that we live a more holy, sacred life. So you can see how this is not in conflict with the dogma. You can say, Jesus died on the cross for my sins, or I'm Jewish and I know Jesus was a teacher. Whatever you say, you are still a soul meant to grow and evolve. But we come back many times. We are rebirthed. That is commonly called reincarnation, but we are rebirthed lifetime after lifetime so that we can explore and experience all that life has to offer. And that each of these lifetimes, we learn more and more, and we learn more of who we are and who God is. We learn that we are a God being. And frankly, it's almost narcissistic to think that we could do this in one lifetime. I can't imagine thinking we could learn all that God is in one lifetime. So as we move forward, as our spiritual consciousness develops, we learn more and more about God. Now, having said this, there are many ways to be able to learn more about God during this lifetime. And I can tell you, I'm doing everything I can to learn more of my soul, more of my soul's true nature, so that I can be a bigger blessing to the world and so that my life can make sense, so that my life is full of peace, full of joy, that I can prosper, that I can, become a more abundant. But the idea is as we evolve and we become more aware of who we are and who God is, then every day we know more of God, and this is the biggest blessing in our lives because it gives us a greater understanding of all that is. It's like as soon as we start awakening more to our spiritual self, the aspect of ourself called the ego begins to diminish. There's a statement in Scripture, Dave. I'm going to have you help me find it, where it says, "I must decrease so He can increase." See if you can find that for me. And I want to come back to it because we are seeking to decrease the personality self and move into the spiritual self, which is what we are calling the soul. We are seeking to move from the personality or ego self to the soul.
Yeah, that's from John 3:30. The he must increase, but I must decrease.
Yes, yes. So the one that he must increase is Jesus, obviously, right? The Christ nature. The Christ nature. And so the limited self is what must decrease. Well, the limited self, as long as it's running your show, doesn't know how to decrease. Until you get more God awareness, all you know is the ego. And so let me tell you what the ego knows. It knows likes and dislikes. It knows whatever the five senses tell us. It's mad, it's up, it's down. It knows taste, it knows seeing, it knows feeling, but it doesn't know higher self. So when we know the soul, we are contacting and in contact with rather the highest part of us, our God self. So then the ego self must become more subdued so that the higher self can come forward. A friend of mine, she's been on the show before. She has been a spiritual teacher for me off and on for many years. I say off and on. She just is a spiritual support for me, but I worked with her intensively many years ago. And in her book, Spiritual Power Tools, she talks about moving from intellect to intuition. And I love this because we most of us live life from the mind, what we think, what we feel, what we think about things. The old statement, I think, therefore I am. Well, that's a lower stage of understanding, and it's kind of a base awareness. But in fact, if you the more intelligent you become, the more you know that you are experiencing limits of the mind. And what's so amazing to me is that some of the greatest thinkers in history, Einstein being one of them, said this: I want to know the mind of God. The rest is just details. I want to know the mind of God. Somebody who had a brilliant intellect. Hear me, friends, but there's more to life than the intellect. So, what happens as you begin to wake up spiritually, and let me back up and say, I say begin to wake up spiritually, because if you think you're awakened, friends, watch out. You're going to get knocked down a peg or two, because if you're here on planet Earth, chances are you're not awakened. You're beginning to awaken. So as you begin to awaken, you're going to realize that there's limits to your intelligence, and there's a possibility for your intelligence to be used in a higher way. So, as what you had used before just to gain knowledge, now that intelligence is going to help you to understand your soul. It's going to help you to do the research to seek out experiences, and then those experiences are going to be known in and through the soul. So, as you do this, you start to develop an aspect of you called the intuition. Some people, when I was growing up, that was called sixth sense. Dave, did you grow up with that statement?
Yeah, just the kind of that uncanny ability to sense something else going on. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I was watching an old Star Trek episode the other day, and they brought up ESP.
Oh,
Remember that?
yeah, yeah. Not the
ESP?
sports channel, but yeah, ESP.
Right. No, that's
Oh, right,
ESPN.
right.
Yes. Right. It was so funny. I sometimes I marvel at how advanced Star Trek, how prophetic that show was. Their phasers looked like early cell phones. It was
Right.
just crazy. Um, but anyway, I digress. So, but the intuition is it's like a higher faculty of the mind. So it's like as you start to know your intuition, you begin to be prepared for things that are going to happen, right? You begin to almost know things in advance. So your intuition, your yearning for knowledge, all these things start working together, and you begin to be excited and more interested in the spiritual nature and the meaning of life, and then, in fact, your place in it. I was watching a series of interviews that David Letterman did. I've always um, thought David Letterman was so talented. He's been through some tough times as well, but he has a current show, and I can tell you right now, he is in a he is trying to find his place in the universe. He's wondering about the meaning of life. And if you've never watched some of his newer shows, they're on Netflix. I'm spacing
Yeah, I think the
on.
name is My Next Guest Needs No Introduction. I think that's the name of the show.
Yes, yes, yes. He always said that. My next guest who needs no introduction. That's true. He's had like Barack Obama as a guest. Uh, and I believe, in fact, he's realizing he doesn't quite know his place in the universe. It's like when you have all this worldly success and then you still feel empty inside, you go, there's got to be something more. Well, this is great news because I can see that this is the archetype of awakening. It's like pretty soon, there's nothing else to know or have. It's about being. It's about being. And so there's this striving to know who I am and what is my place in the universe. So if the intellectual mind is to work with your thoughts and analyze things, then the intuitive mind is to go beyond the scope of the everyday life, right? So um, developing this intuition is a way to go past uh, the day to day and into your soul's evolution. So um, this I'm about to say something, and I wanted to sit with you a minute. So, as you start developing your intuition, the intellectual mind becomes number two. So it's not about what you know, but who you are. Now, having said that, again, the soul works with the intellect, yes, but the intellect wants to analyze and figure out, and that is wonderful. But the soul knows things the mind cannot yet understand. So the soul, the intuition that you can tap into, goes beyond the limited nature of the mind. Right. So the intellect can only take you so far along the path to enlightenment. Right. So it's almost like the intellect is the intelligence of the personality, and intuition is the intelligence of the soul. Yeah. So as we think about life and we think about things like people on the journey, it's easy to see it in public figures that are not living up to our expectations. Well, I mentioned this earlier in the show, and when we can see people that really don't understand that life is about more than getting what I want and making all the money I can, the old idea of the one with the most toys wins. So when this is our goal, being right, making money, the one with the most stuff wins, we can sit back and know this is a adolescent soul, because these are the behaviors of a 2-year-old. Mine, 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 mine. No, 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 no. He did it. He did it. He did it. It was not me, mama. Okay. These are the actions of a 2-year-old. I'm making fun of it because, well, I've had a 2-year-old. I know what 2-year-olds do. I know when they don't get their way, they cry, they cry. Yes, we've seen this in world leaders around the world, not just in the US, around the world. When we see actions of compassion, of purpose, we know this is a more advanced soul. We've also seen that in political leadership around the world. So it's not like it's hard to see, but if you're looking at it only from the personality level, you're going to get really mad and really frustrated really quickly. You say, what's wrong with these people? Everybody has to be 2 at some point. Thank goodness we're no longer 2. But even on our bad days, some of us go to 2 pretty quickly, right? So we seek to live this higher awareness. And as we do, as we're living from soul, as we are evolving, as we are being rebirthed, lifetime after lifetime, we're learning more of our spiritual nature. We're learning more about who God is and who we are. So if right now there's people in your life that are driving you crazy, start thinking from a higher level. Start thinking, oh, wow, I'm learning something about their soul journey. They don't have to be wrong and you don't have to be right. It's important to notice so you have context for these behaviors. So it helps me to not get uselessly mad. Because I can tell you, if a 2-year-old is whining and you get mad with them, you know what you have now? 2 2-year-olds. You have 2 2-year-olds going at it. But if you can have more awareness and say, oh, I see that you're mad. Yes, the 2-year-old says. Tell me what made you mad. I didn't get what I wanted. I know. Sometimes in life we don't get what we want. Oh, the 2-year-old says. And then they evolve. So some of the people we're seeing in our world today have never had that brief interaction to help them evolve. And they are committed to 2 this entire lifetime. And you know what? We were probably there at one time or another. We had to be, or we wouldn't be where we are today. So if you're living life, you're aware of your spiritual nature, you're aware that you want to help and support others on the journey, chances are you've been experiencing this life many, many times, and you are an advanced soul on the journey. So rather than belittling others or getting angry with others, our job is to have compassion, to when there's a time, to provide a different example of what life can be and what life is, and to live life as best we can from our greatest awareness of our own spiritual nature. So we begin living then from the level of intuition, the level of soul, not the level of the mind and personality. So if we're ever in anger and frustration, we know we're living on the human level. It's not that anger is not a normal emotion. And certainly if we're acting out our anger on others, we have gone backwards about 20 lifetimes. So this is important because it can help us give grace to others on the journey, because we've all been there. Maybe not this lifetime, but we've all been there. So, I have a lot of grace for people who just don't know their holiness yet. All they're living out is their pathetic, limited understanding. And, when you're two, all you know is I want. And when you don't get it, all you know is it hurts. You don't know there's anything else. So friends, this helps me in giving grace to people in the world that I can see are obviously lost. They don't know God. They don't know their soul. They don't even know their own mind. So our work is to grow, to prosper, evolve. That when we come up against these situations in life that are difficult, rather than choosing to get somebody back or to get it right, what we seek to do is evolve forward, to grow in spiritual consciousness, to grow in awareness of who God is in us and who we are. Because friends, you are originally blessed, not originally cursed. You are here to be a blessing. You are here to evolve into more and more of your spiritual nature. You are here to live life as this spiritually aware, enlightened soul. Imagine the world being lived like this by every soul. Imagine it. Realizing our impact on planet Earth, realizing our impact on one another, realizing that we were meant to love and support one another through life's tragedies. Imagine what it would be like. Well, this is my prayer for you and for the world, friends, that we continue to grow, that we continue to prosper, that we continue to evolve. This is why we're here doing this work on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. We're here to be a blessing and to be blessed. Thank you for joining us on this part of your journey, dear friend, and we will see you next week. Many blessings.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey presented by Zen Living Realty, Supportek Staffing, and Center for the Healing Arts. This channel is also made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2021 Cynthia_Aliceanderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.